I was just looking at a chart of the dollar year to date, admittedly a dollar index, and I was expecting to see some remaining strength for the year, given the flight into dollar safety that we saw earlier on in the year. But actually, it's fairly flat over the year to date period. What is your expectation then for the dollar?
Well, first, let's just understand and explain why we're flat. The S&P's done a round trip and the dollar's done a round trip. I mean, this is risk on, risk off. This is in the beginning of a bear or bull market. We went massively risk off. The dollar rallied like crazy. The S&P came back 1,000 points. And lo and behold, most came back. So we mostly back where we started, with the dollar a touch stronger, especially against the EM space. So this isn't about the dollar. This is about equities. This is about bonds. The dollar is the last in the pecking order.
So you don't think the dollar is losing its stature as the world reserve currency? You don't think that it's got some challengers on that front?
Like who? I mean, come on. What are you going to, I mean, when you look at the dollar, I mean,
we've got this wonderful European Union here, David. I mean, I realize you guys have left it, but look at the strength. Merkel and Macron getting together with a 750 billion euro bailout fund.
Yeah, and the Italian budget deficit 155 to 160% by the end of next year, and continually rising. And that's just going to be bailed out into perpetuity. Fine, if you believe that, that's great. But there's still issues. We've seen that. And the euro is a young pretender. It's the little baby brother to the dollar. But, you know, the big brother always can give the little one, you know, the little bit of the out my way, son, you know, who's the boss here. So, no, the dollar hasn't lost its allure. The dollar, when I'm looking at it in FX transactionary volumes of reserves, cross-bank lending, international debt securities, it's massive. Come on, where do you get all this stuff from? So when the dollar went crazy and started rallying, everyone said it's risk off. And then when we went risk on, you say it's a dollar bear market, it's lost its allure. No, the US has just saved the world with the cross-currency swaps. And by that action, people think it's undone itself. No, the dollar, reports of its death are largely exaggerated. And by you there as well.
Largely exaggerated, very premature perhaps then, David. But what about if we're heading for a bifurcated world, if we're heading for two spheres, a sort of US and Western sphere and a Chinese sphere? Do we divide the world in two, and the dollar just ends up with half of it and the yuan maybe with the other half?
Well, I think it's very different when you think of the world economically and politically, which is what you're really describing, compared to currency-wise. And currency-wise, that's not what's happened. The dollar is the dominant currency. That's it. The renminbi is rising, and there's no doubt about that. Maybe in 20, 30 years, it can challenge the dollar. The euro, what are we on now? 1990? 2000, 10, 30 years, and now you're talking about maybe the euro's doing this and that after 30 years. So come on, look, not in my lifetime will I see the dollar be knocked off its perch as the centerpiece of our financial architecture.
Hang on, we're looking at your currency calls here. You
Sure.
say euro forecast 110. That's pretty strong. You think the euro is going to hold at 110 going out, say, 12 months?
Yeah, well, you know, when both of them are at a stalemate, and we've seen it, in fact, over the last 3 or 4 days. I think the euro's traded at like in a 112 handle. It's hardly moved at all. So we are, yes, the euro was under threat. And as you mentioned, the Next Generation Fund was helpful for the euro, pushed it up 5% or so. It was 107 going down. It's now 112. And I think that's the correct move, about 5% on the euro. So I don't disagree with you. But, yeah, euro going side. Look, my forecast practically, except for one flush I got, has been 110 for 18 months. And everyone said, oh, it's boring, it's boring. But that's where it is. It doesn't move at the moment, the euro dollar. It's not where the sex and violence is in FX.
OK, what about the pound then? Sticking with a European conversation, David, what about the pound? Is there anything that would make you turn very positive on cable or any other cross?
Well, look, I mean, the problem is if you believe economic growth in any country is going to outshine another, then of course you'll be a positive on it. But look at the vagaries. I mean, we saw an ADP revision of 6 million. We saw 10 million miss on payrolls. It's the Wild West out there when it comes to numbers. So at the moment, we've got the issue of Brexit. We've got a big budget deficit. We've got a current account issue. And I don't like sterling at the moment. We're pushing, our view on sterling is for it to go lower. So there we've got some, a forecast of like 120 for sterling by the end of the year. So we are looking for a lower sterling. Now, it doesn't look a million miles away from where it is now. But if you look where we were previously, it depends what day you ask whether my forecast is an extreme one, average one, or on consensus.
What do you think about the sterling, really long term, David? Even if you have little faith in the European Union now because of debt to GDP, I wonder what your long-term view is on the euro sterling. And you've also got the yuan rising. You're going to continue to have dollar strength as Britain, maybe even breaks up further than it already is without Scotland, et cetera. I mean, is there a reason for people to hold pounds in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously we're going through a massive political change for the economy, the system. We're still not sure about what the deal's going to look like. But, it's the market believes in the taxpayer in the UK. So that means the worry about the indebted situation is not extreme. So, yeah, I mean, look, sterling is cheap and it deserves to be cheap. We've decided to unanchor ourselves from a big closed economy called the Eurozone and open ourselves to globalization at a time when deglobalization is taking place. And as you heard from Anna earlier about possible bifurcation in the world. So it's not a good time to be rushing around looking for trade deals and things like that. So, 120 sterling's cheap and it deserves to be cheap. But I don't fear beyond that.